On a freezing Christmas Eve night beneath the flickering street lamp of an old downtown corner, the wind pushed through the empty alleys like a restless ghost searching for warmth, rattling loose banners and carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a vendor already packing up for the night. And it was there, curled against the wall with nothing more than a torn blanket and a duffel bag that had clearly lived through more winters than she had socks, that people whispered about the woman they assumed was homeless, the one with the hood pulled low, her posture guarded, her boots muddy, her gloves mismatched, her face hidden beneath shadows as if she didn't want the world to remember she existed. But everything shifted the moment a Navy SEAL, broad-shouldered, scar across his jaw, moving with the confident precision only years of training carved into a man, stepped out of the coffee shop holding two hot drinks and froze. Absolutely froze, because on the side of her torn pack, half covered beneath duct tape and grit, he spotted something no civilian would ever recognize. The Christmas Eve patch, that rare, unofficial, almost mythical marker only given covertly to members of a specific classified rescue and recovery team who had taken part in one of the most dangerous December missions the SEALs had ever undertaken, a mission whispered about in halls, but never spoken aloud. And his heart slammed hard because only 7 people in the world had that patch. 6 men and 1 woman who had vanished years ago, declared missing after a catastrophic blast. A woman known for impossible courage. A woman the SEAL community remembered as a ghost of heroism. And he stepped closer, eyes narrowing, saying her name like a question, like a prayer, like a memory rising from ashes, while around them holiday shoppers rushed by, without noticing that something extraordinary was unfolding, something worthy to be told on her brave stories. So he knelt and extended a drink toward her, asking softly if it was really her, the legend, the one they mourned, the one they honored every year on Christmas Eve. And she lifted her head slowly, revealing eyes that carried exhaustion embroidered with silent war. And the second he saw those eyes, the SEAL felt the ground tilt under him because, yes, it was her, the one survivor no one believed survived. And when she realized he recognized the patch, she tried to pull her hood lower. But he told her, voice shaking, that the brotherhood never forgot her, that he remembered the day they thought she died, the explosion, the smoke, the radio silence, the chaos, how he screamed her name through the static until his throat bled. And she whispered that she didn't die, but sometimes she wished she had because the world she returned to did not welcome her. The government classified her as deceased, benefits gone, identity erased, leaving her wandering from place to place, carrying only the memories that weighed more than her pack. And he, unable to accept that the woman who once saved an entire team by crawling, bleeding through shattered concrete, now sat alone in a frozen alley, pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders while telling her she deserved the world, not the cold. And that tonight, of all nights, Christmas Eve, the night she once risked everything to save them, she wasn't going to sleep on concrete, not as long as he lived. And as he helped her to her feet, she resisted, insisting she didn't want pity. But he said it wasn't pity, it was the honor she earned and the loyalty she never lost. And he asked her what happened after the explosion, how she vanished from every map, how a warrior capable of impossible survival could end up here, hiding broken, forgotten by a system she bled for. And she told him in one breathless stream about waking up beneath debris, crawling for miles with a shattered leg, being retrieved by locals who had no idea who she was, recovering without documents or identification, trying for months to re-establish herself, but getting drowned by bureaucracy, each door shutting in her face until she lost everything piece by piece. And as she spoke, he felt fury coil inside him, the kind of fury that comes when heroes are abandoned by the institutions that should protect them. And he swore right there that he would change her story tonight, that the world would know her courage again, that she would not disappear into the cold. And while snowflakes began to drift like soft embers falling from the sky, he guided her toward warmth, promising that the SEALs would rally for her, that she would stand again, train again if she wanted, live again. And as they walked, she hesitated because she feared returning to people who believed she was dead. But he said they never stopped honoring her, that every year on Christmas Eve they placed a patch, a replica of the one she wore, on the memorial wall. and that the team commander still lit a candle for her, believing she was watching over them. And her breath shook because she had spent years thinking no one cared, and now someone had found her because of a simple patch stitched in memory of a night when she saved lives. And he told her firmly to look up because people needed to hear her story. People watching her brave stories needed to know what true resilience looked like. And he urged them, yes, the viewers right now, to subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable, powerful stories like hers, and to comment where they were watching from because stories like this deserve to travel across the world. And she managed the smallest smile, the first in years, because for the first time someone saw her not as broken, but as a survivor stepping out of silence. And as they reached the corner where the glow of a small diner spilled onto the snow-coated pavement, she hesitated again, clutching the strap of her weathered duffel as though it contained the last fragments of a life she wasn't sure she was allowed to reclaim. But he gently touched her arm and told her that walking into warmth didn't erase the storm she survived. It simply proved she deserved better than the cold world had offered her. And when the door chimed softly as they entered, a wave of heat rolled over her face, making her blink hard as her fingers tingled with returning sensation. And the server behind the counter, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, glanced up with a smile before noticing the state of the newcomer and softening with quiet concern. But the seal nodded politely and guided the woman to a booth in the corner where she could sit with her back to the wall, a habit she hadn't shaken from combat days. And he slid into the seat across from her, watching as she tried to make her shaking hand still, and he asked her gently what name she wanted him to call her now, since the world had stolen the identity she once had. And she looked out the window at the drifting snow before whispering that her old name didn't feel like hers anymore, that she had lived too many lives in the years since, that maybe she would choose a new one once she found solid ground again. And he told her that whatever name she chose, the strength behind it would remain the same. Forged in missions no one else would ever know about. Missions like the Christmas Eve op that had given her the patch, the one she kept even when everything else was taken, because it reminded her of the night she refused to die. And as the server brought them hot coffee and steaming bowls of soup, she cupped the drink with both hands, letting the heat crawl in her bones. And the seal asked what she planned to do now that someone had finally found her. But she didn't know because the world felt unfamiliar, too fast, too loud, too indifferent to the wound she carried, until he leaned forward and told her she wouldn't face it alone anymore, that he would contact his old team, the ones who still spoke her name with reverence, and he would tell them their lost sister had returned. And her eyes widened with fear and disbelief because she didn't know how they would react, whether they would welcome her or question her survival. But he assured her that loyalty in their world was deeper than blood, that they would celebrate the miracle of her return. And as she slowly ate the soup, letting warmth seep back into her, memories began to surface uninvited. Flashbacks of that night, of running through smoke, of dragging a wounded teammate while bullets snapped past her ears, of the deafening explosion that buried her under metal and ash, of the long crawl through freezing darkness. And she flinched as the images came. But he reached across the table and reminded her softly that she was here now, that she had survived the kind of night no one should have lived through, and that surviving made her stronger than any ghost from her past. And she nodded, though tears slipped silently down her cheeks, tears she tried to wipe away before anyone could see. But he didn't let her hide, telling her that warriors cry too, that strength wasn't in silence, but in resilience. And she finally let herself breathe, letting the truth settle that she wasn't invisible anymore, that someone finally knew she existed beyond the cold alley shadows. And as they talked, a group of college kids entered the diner laughing loudly, glancing curiously at her before turning away, unaware that the woman sitting mere feet from them had once shielded American soldiers with nothing but her grit and will, unaware that the patch on her bag represented a mission that changed the course of lives, unaware that she was a living legend disguised as someone forgotten. And the seal noticed the way she shrank slightly under their gaze, still afraid of being judged. But he reminded her that she wasn't defined by their assumptions, that one day the world would know her story, maybe through the very screen the viewer held right now, watching her brave stories, and he encouraged them again. Yes, you reading this, to subscribe so her voice could reach far beyond one snowy street, and to comment where they were watching from so she could see how many places her resilience traveled, and she inhaled deeply, the thought warming her more than the soup. And after another long silence, she asked the seal why he, of all people, happened to recognize her tonight, and he said it wasn't chance, that he had come to this part of town every Christmas Eve for years hoping to find closure, to honor her memory near places where the forgotten gathered, because she had always cared for the overlooked, always given her rations away, always stayed behind to cover the retreat of others. And when he spotted the edge of the patch, even under dirt and tape, something in him sparked with recognition because no one else carried that symbol the way she did, with quiet pride and selfless purpose. And her throat tightened because she never realized people searched for her, never knew someone believed so fiercely she might still be alive, and hearing it made her chest swell with emotions she had buried so deeply she thought they had died. And he told her that she deserved not just survival, but restoration. And when he finished his call to the team commander, stepping outside into the cold for privacy, he returned with a look she couldn't decipher, until he told her that the commander was on his way, right now, tonight, refusing to wait even one more hour to see the woman they had mourned. And she froze, fear swirling with hope, because she wasn't sure she was ready, not sure she could handle being seen again, not sure she could face the man who had once led her into impossible battles. But the seal squeezed her hand and told her she didn't need to be perfect or strong for this reunion, because the very fact that she lived was strength enough. And outside, the snow grew heavier, blanketing the streets with gentle white as the clock neared midnight, and somewhere in the distance sirens wailed, blending with the bells of a nearby church, painting the night with a strange mixture of chaos and peace. And she looked out at the world she had been gone from for too long, wondering if she could fit into it again, wondering if she still had a place among warriors or whether she was meant to walk a quieter path now. But he told her she didn't have to choose tonight, that tonight was only about coming home. Even if home was a group of battle-scarred soldiers who missed her more than she realized, and she pressed her hands together to stop them from shaking, realizing she was about to step back into a life she had let go of long ago. And as she pressed her trembling hands together, bracing for a reunion, she had imagined 1,000 different ways during the lonely nights, when hope felt like a language she had forgotten how to speak. The diner door opened with a gust of snow-filled wind, and the team commander stepped inside, older, grayer, carrying new scars that told their own stories. Yet the moment his eyes found her, the harshness in his posture melted into raw disbelief, and he whispered her name the same way a man whispers a miracle, making the server pause mid-pour and the college kids turn their heads. And when he crossed the diner with the unsteady stride of someone fighting past shock, she felt the years collapse between them like thin sheets of ice shattering under warmth. And for the first time since the explosion, she rose from her seat without fear guiding her movements, standing tall even though her legs trembled, and the commander stopped in front of her, searching her face as if trying to confirm that she was real. And when she nodded, he pulled her into a fierce, crushing embrace. Not the gentle kind given to the broken, but the kind reserved for warriors who return against all odds. And his voice cracked as he told her the team never stopped honoring her, that he carried guilt every Christmas Eve for not saving her, that he prayed she was alive somewhere. And she felt tears warm her cheeks as the seal who found her stepped beside them, witnessing the moment he had hoped for since. The night he saw the patch in the alley, and the commander pulled back, wiping his face with the back of his glove, telling her that her place had remained empty in every mission briefing, her locker untouched, her name engraved on their hearts even when it had been carved on a memorial wall. And she whispered that she feared they would resent her for vanishing into the shadows. But he shook his head firmly and told her that surviving was not abandonment. It was proof of the strength they admired most, and that no system, no paperwork, no bureaucratic mistake could erase the legacy she built with every life she saved. And as the three of them sat in the booth, talking quietly, The commander explained that he would personally reinstate her identity, restore her records, recover her benefits, and make sure she received the recognition she deserved, not as a ghost or a forgotten warrior, but as the living heartbeat of the Christmas Eve operation that had inspired countless soldiers. And she felt something inside her lift, something heavy and rusted finally turning free. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't returning to her old life. She was stepping into a new one shaped by resilience instead of ruin, surrounded by people who still believed in her even when she no longer believed in herself. And as the night deepened and the snowfall softened to a peaceful drift, the commander insisted on driving her to the base so she wouldn't spend another second in the cold, but she asked for a moment, just one, to step outside alone and breathe. And when she pushed open the diner door and felt the sharp bite of winter air against her skin, she looked up at the star-scattered sky and let out a breath she felt she'd been holding since the day the explosion stole her past. And behind her, the SEAL and the commander waited patiently, giving her the space to stand on her own 2 feet. And she whispered a quiet thank you to the world that had once forgotten her, but was now willing to welcome her back, then turned toward her brothers in arms with her chin lifted, ready to walk toward the warmth of a future she thought she'd never see. And as they helped her into the vehicle, she glanced once more at the snowy street where her story had almost ended, realizing it was also the place where her story had been reborn, the place where a simple patch had reunited her with the family she lost, the place where she stopped being homeless and remembered she was a hero. And as their car pulled away, leaving the diner lights glowing softly behind them, she felt, for the first time in years, like she was finally going home, and that her story, shared now with the world watching through her brave stories, would remind countless others that even in the coldest nights, hope can find you again. So to everyone reading or listening, make sure to subscribe for more incredible journeys like hers, and don't forget to comment where you're watching from, because her courage deserves to echo across every corner of the world where someone is waiting for their own light to return.